Compassionate, intelligent, and soft-spoken, this humanitarian is always looking to help others. Not only is he an ambassador for this event, he serves as Vice President of the Inmate Advisory Committee here and is certified peer mentor. Let's give a warm welcome to Jerell Smallwood.
Peace. My life has been seemingly defined by a series of earthquakes. I'm originally from New York City, Manhattan's Lower East Side. My father was from Harlem, and the earliest memory I have comes from when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I can remember him pushing me briskly through the street in a metal shopping cart. I was laughing and smiling, and I remember being in a state of pure happiness as he was pushing and running behind me. But the way that I was feeling was abruptly interrupted when my mother finally caught up to us. My mom and dad started basically wishboning me back and forth in the middle of the street. They both had an arm apiece, yanking and saying, "Give me my son," and "This is my son," and so he is my son too. My father was an alcoholic, and in preparation for this TED Talk, I asked my mother what kind of drunk would she say that he was. She said that he was a very violent drunk. I agree. He was outrageous and violent, and when I was a baby, he threw me down a flight of stairs. That was crazy. My mother couldn't deal with the domestic violence any further, so she left and moved to Virginia. When me and my sisters made it down here, my mom had already been dating this guy. He was a drug addict and an alcoholic. Being from New York, I was unfamiliar with kerosene heaters, and I touched one. After I touched the stove, the palm of my hand was instantly covered with blisters. I guess that lesson wasn't enough because my mom's boyfriend decided that I deserved a beating to go along with my burns. And I can clearly remember an instance where he and my mother were punching one another in the face in the middle of the street. And ultimately, they broke up after that. Thank God. Then there was another guy. He was also a drug addict and an alcoholic. He and my mother had started dating. And when he introduced himself to me and my sisters, it stands out in my memory because he was so nice. That didn't last, though. And in the summer of 1991, dude beat me almost like every single day. I'm talking about with belts, switches, hands, a cutting board, an electrical extension cord every day. I tried to duck him, but I couldn't. This is no exaggeration. When dude beat me with that electrical extension cord, it was the day before the first day of school. And I remember not being able to sit down on the school bus the next day. I remember being in class that morning wishing that I had enough courage to tell my teacher what was actually going on. Right now, as I stand here talking to you, my legs still have scars on them from the summer of '91. There was another guy. He was a drug addict and an alcoholic as well. I was older now, maybe 16 or 17, so there weren't any more beatings really happening at that time. One evening, though, this guy was being really disrespectful to my mother during an argument. He and I got into a slight physical altercation, and I ended up getting the better of him. I guess his timing was perfect to get his get back. It's a cold world, so one day dude lied on me, and he told my mother that when he came downstairs one night that me and my friends were at the kitchen table cutting up drugs on her plates. When my mother confronted me about it, I told her that I didn't do it, but she kicked me out, and I've pretty much been locked up ever since. I'm serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Everybody has a story, and it is worth me noting that I love my mother very, very much. In fact, she is my hero. After 20-plus years of me being incarcerated, she apologized to me for my upbringing and abuse. And another reason is because throughout my childhood, I've witnessed this 90-pound woman have to physically fight off and defend herself against grown men. I've cried over her battle wounds, and I can recall times where she had to apply extra makeup and put on sunshades just so she could go to work. It was painful to live, but heroic on her part. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in 2022, almost 2,000 children died as a result of child abuse and neglect. And in that year alone, Child Protective Services received reports of maltreatment for over 7 million children. Statistics indicate that child abuse survivors are at an increased risk for delinquency, drug use, and imprisonment. Childhood abuse is a risk factor and one of the most common events leading to the development of post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, insecurity, low self-esteem, inappropriate or troubled relationships, or even a lack of empathy. To all biological mothers and fathers, adoptive parents, foster parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, older cousins, or any adult with guardianship over a child. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel you absolutely have to discipline your child, first, calm down and think about positive reinforcement, because physical punishment is not an answer. And if you erroneously decide to beat them and they have a look of devastation in their eyes after what has just taken place, please stop. And don't put your hands on your children ever again. There are courses for anger management and outlets to correct any abusive tendencies that a guardian may have. Statements like, "This is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, and I only beat you because I love you," they leave a disassociation between man, woman, and child. Then the trust leaves, and it makes children feel like the love is gone as well. As an adult, I am plagued by the statistics. And if you've seen some of the things that I have seen, and if you've experienced some of the things that I have, then I beg you to please go out and seek professional help. The children who are currently suffering at the hands of an abuser, I love you, and I am sorry for everything that you are going through. And the burden's not on you to go out and seek help. The adults in our lives just have to stop with the foolishness, because the most vulnerable of our population are not our punching bags. They are not our whipping posts, and they should not be the objects of our lust. Children are our link to the future, and they must be nurtured, respected, loved, protected, and educated. As a society, let us teach an abundance of love from the beginning and end all forms of domestic violence, child abuse, and neglect. Thank you. Peace.
This husband, father, and product of the old projects of Danville believes we all have a destiny just waiting to be forged. he is determined to forge his own as creator of a nonprofit designed to teach financial management skills to future generations. Please welcome Tyson Curley.
You see, I began selling drugs and playing with guns at the age of 12. To my mom, my uncle, and older friends, it was normal. If it made a profit, then it was acceptable in my household. I never once thought about the hurt, the drug addiction, the mental health struggles, or all the pain that I was causing. When I made that choice to put drugs and a profit before my daughter, that was the worst decision ever. At 19, I was convicted of my first felony, possession with intent to distribute marijuana. You see, the prison system was a trap I had set up for myself at 12 years old. Today, however, my old crimes is only considered a misdemeanor, but yet I'm still serving felony time in prison. 3 years, 320 days, all for 1.7 ounces of marijuana. Something as small as a little tomato can get you a lot of time. I have nightmares about never going home or submitting motion after motion, only to be told that there's nothing that could be done. When I first got to prison, a guy once told me to conduct myself as if my family could turn the TV on and watch and listen to everything that I'm doing in prison. So I started treating prison like college. If I saw an opportunity to be productive or become educated, I seized it. And I always had that spark in me that craved knowledge. A low-key nerd, as my wife says. So I signed up for any and every program to let the state educate me. I even designed a brochure to help inmates let them know what programs the DOC offered. I took sheet metal HVAC as well as economics and personal finances. I received a 98% in my EPF class, and I completed sheet metal layout, basic welding, and electrician wiring, earning my certificate. And I also became a teacher's aide and a pod tutor, where I helped improve the GED reading and math scores. If there was classes that I wanted to take, I created them. I wrote up the lesson plan and presented them to the principal to get them approved. Most attempts failed, but one did make it. So for someone with my background coming from Garfield Street that had to learn how to walk again after being shot in his back, to create a class with positive benefits and get it approved by the prison, making it a priority for inmates that's close to going home, that's a big win. My economics and personal finance teacher, Ms. Davis, she opened my eyes to the world of financial literacy. You see, business has always been a part of my world, just as much, if not more, as drugs. Ms. Davis, however, she helped me understand what my business is and how to reorganize my business. And most important, how to make sure that the products my business sold would never put me back in prison for any reason again. She touched on all points needed to manage your personal finances, whether it was banking, investing, mortgages, interest rate loans, budgeting, and insurance. So with my mind now set on positive ways to hustle, I saw the benefits of teaching financial management could do for a community. So I researched on how to create a nonprofit designed to teach money management strategies to the recently released inmates in the homeless community. Because money is control and power. Money, if understood, is the key to a better life. So it is the understanding and the knowledge of money that is the glue to bridge the gap for opportunities for all. And my nonprofit will provide the tools and the knowledge of financial literacy to those individuals that never want to come back to prison again or be left alone in the cold. And it will focus on teaching positive habits, furthering education, whether it's obtaining your GED, job training with the Pacific Career in mind, basic seminars on real estate investing, or motivational speaking. I can't say, and I won't say I'm proud about coming to prison, but I'm grateful for the time that I needed to learn how to be a productive person and be proactive with my time, using all resources available to my advantage. I now have a plan with small and large goals, measuring my progress each week, month, and year. As the astronaut Mae Jemison says, failure to recognize possibilities is the most dangerous and common mistake that one can make. Thank y'all.
This next speaker is a man of faith who takes pride in being a good father. He is an ambassador of this event, member of the Inmate Advisory Committee, educator, and volunteer peer mentor. Passionate about entrepreneurship and family, he uses his time as a platform from which he educates and motivates his children to achieve greatness. Please welcome Michael Hill.
As a kid, my parents would always talk about pride in a good way, like taking pride in who you are, your accomplishments, your goals, and your family. Coming up, I didn't know pride in a negative sense, nor how dangerous it could be. But as I became a young man, I soon discovered pride in a new form. See, on January 28th, 1997, two guys whom I trusted to install speakers a few days prior broke into my car, stole those same speakers and my radio. I felt violated and disrespected, to say the least. My first response, my first thought, was these dudes have the audacity to break into my car? They must have lost their mind. I didn't know then that pride plus ego would equal disaster. When my friend and I confronted them, one of them pointed a gun at me. And in a blink of an eye, my friend had shot them both. Everything happened so fast. I panicked and ran, not realizing what had just happened. One man was in critical condition, but eventually recovered. The other was released from the hospital the same night. Police couldn't find the other suspect. However, me not turning my friend in had nothing to do with the ignorance of street code, but was rather due to the fact that he thought he was saving my life. I was found guilty of shooting both individuals, even though I didn't pull the trigger. For years, I told myself that I was innocent and that the justice system had convicted me for something that I didn't do. But one night, as I began to pray, it was at that very moment that I realized that my intent made me guilty. Had it not been for my pride, this whole situation could have been avoided. See, I left out the house armed, angry, and determined to get back what was mine. So you see, I was everything but innocent. Taking the law into your own hands comes with serious consequences. I could have just called the police. But as a result, my actions led to my wife being husbandless, my children being fatherless. The impact that my incarceration has had on my family, mere words could never explain. But eventually, I stopped wallowing in my delusional sense of innocence and began to refocus on being a father and the best possible version of myself. One of the most hurtful times throughout my incarceration was when my family was on their way home from visiting me, and my son called out to my mother saying, "Grandma, I changed my mind. I don't want to be like my dad anymore." She asked, why not? He responded, because I don't want to go to jail. Hearing those words hurt me more than prison ever could. So I decided to become that man again, the man that my son had wanted to be. I've realized that being a father isn't contingent upon your location. The judge may have given me time, but what I do with it was up to me. So I began a new journey into fatherhood. Using my incarceration as my college, I purchased numerous books, utilized the library and different resources to educate myself in various subjects. When my children became adults, they had reminisced about how their dad studied in prison in order to call and help them with their homework. As they grew into adulthood, I used the knowledge I gained while incarcerated to help advise them in financial decisions. Playing a part in my children's path to entrepreneurship gave me a great sense of pride in a positive way. While incarcerated, I've served as an elder mentor for reentry, a program aide for substance abuse, a GED tutor, and currently an HVAC instructor. Every day, I strive to be better and to direct my time towards accomplishing things of substance and value. My children has been the driving force behind my success and my desires to help make a difference in the lives of others. Their love gives me the strength to overcome my trials and tribulations of my incarceration. You see, pride may have taken me away from my children, but my pride as a father is what's going to get me back to them. Misguided pride leads to bad choices, regret, and sorrow. However, pride doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just needs to be focused in the right direction. I'm praying that one day that we can all use pride to become the best versions of ourselves, not the worst. And in return, it will keep us in the comfort of our loved ones and not in the confinement of a prison. Thank you.
Back to the stage for one last time to share with us about the never boring escapades of the Seville family. Please welcome Mr. Mike Seville.
All right, you remember where we left off? Prom dress. The youngest child was also a girl, 4 boys in the middle. So I prepared her at that tender age of second grade that all those prom dresses and homecoming dresses are going to be yours when you hit your junior year in high school. And you'll be cool because you're going to go retro, no matter what they look like. So as the kids grew up and got a little older, as life moves on, I used to go visit my mother a lot. I'm from Pennsylvania. I would go up to Pennsylvania. I'd visit my mom. And she would always be like, look, take me somewhere. Let's get in the car, go somewhere. I'm like, no. Remember my eyeball? We're not doing that. Pretty sure the Meals on Wheels guy will be around pretty soon. Maybe he'll take you somewhere. But I would take her around. We would drive around. Everything was good. And then not so many years ago, my mom passed away. And she wanted to be cremated, so that's what we did. I had no idea before that you could get so many types of urns, things that contained ashes. So I'm in there, and they're talking to me. I notice they got a whole catalog. I'm going through it. And they had a keychain urn. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm getting, because Mom always liked to drive around. So now you can be on the keychain every time we go somewhere. Man, you're going with me. So I thought, yeah, that is cool. And so one day I'm in this store. I don't know whether you're familiar with Richmond, but there is a Sam's Club on West Broad Street. Right across the street from the Sam's Club, there is a Kroger. It's on the same side of the road, but like directly across from it. So I'm in the Kroger shop, and I go to the self-checkout thing, right? And you got your little Kroger blooper card that get your, so I go, I'm like, what is that in my pocket? I take my keys out. The top of the urn is just hanging there. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? I start doing like this, a whole cloud of smoke is coming up. I'm like, oh my God. Wiping the ashes off my pants and checking out. I'm like, I don't know whether I'm supposed to say, like, hey, spill on aisle 3. I don't know what's happening right now. So the moral of the story is, the store is still open. A part of my mother is buffed into the floor at the Kroger on West Broad Street. And I mean, it's cool now because like when it's her birthday or, you know, like Mother's Day coming up, I just go to like the flower section and just drop them on the floor by the self-checkout. And I'm like, I don't even got to pay for them. So that works out great. But I did tell the people in the store, I'm like, hey, look, if you guys are in here stocking shelves at night and you hear some like, woo, over by the Polygrip, you know what time it is. So look, I'm going to leave you all with that. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a man whose many accomplishments include serving as a Commonwealth Attorney, U.S. District Attorney, Judge, and Law School Dean before taking the helm at the DOC. It is with great pleasure that I introduce the Director of the Virginia Department of Corrections, Chadwick Dotson.
So I'm not sure who's responsible for making me go after Warden Seville, but someone's in a lot of trouble. So I want to tell you a little story here about a journey of a young, tough as nails, law and order prosecutor to a guy who has become passionate about the idea of what second chances can mean in Virginia. So you heard it's part of my biography there. Many of you know that I was a judge. Some of you know I was a law professor. A lot of you know I was the chairman of the Virginia Parole Board. But many years ago, just a couple years out of law school, I got a job as a prosecutor, a young assistant prosecutor. And a couple years after that, I'm 29 years old and get the opportunity to run for Commonwealth's attorney. And so I ran a campaign, law and order, right? That's what I felt like my community wanted, and I won. And so I felt like that's the way I had to be as a prosecutor. Now, my assistant prosecutors all had instructions. Remember, there's a human being in that defendant's seat. We're not trying to pile up convictions. But I was hard charging, especially against repeat offenders or violent offenders. And so one day, we just finished a jury trial. It was a malicious wounding case. Just finished a jury trial. I had won. Don't remember what the sentence was in that particular case, but after it was over, I get a message. I'm back in my office. Said, a couple of judges want to see you back in chambers. Well, that's a little nerve-wracking for a young attorney, as you can imagine, being called back into chambers. So I'm racking my brain. What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? And so I go back there, and there's actually 2 judges there. Now, later on, they became my colleagues. I knew them as Tammy and John, but back then, they were honorable. And I walked in and said, yes, Your Honors, what have I done? And they said, have a seat. So I had a seat there. And they started launching into their spiel about how they wanted to start a drug court, a recovery court in that jurisdiction, the 30th Judicial Circuit. And let me tell you something, I wasn't in trouble, thankfully, but felt like I was in trouble because I'm not about these soft on crime policies. You're telling me someone's going to get charged with a crime in my jurisdiction? And we're just going to drop the charges if they do a couple things? Not a chance in the world. Not a chance in the world. But they were explaining to me how we can't do this without the prosecutor being on board because it doesn't work that way. Prosecutors have to help refer and be a part of the process. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what am I going to do? And what I did was I looked at the judge and said, okay. And I walked back into my office, and my mind's churning. And I walked back all the way through my office to where my chief deputy's office was. He was about the same age as me. We kind of came up through the office at the same time as assistant prosecutors. And he was sitting behind his desk. I slumped down into the chair across from him and said, we got some problems here. But the judges want us to be participating in this process. There's a process you have to go through to be able to start a drug court, a recovery court in Virginia. And so I said, I'm appointing you to go, just attend the meetings, go through the process. I'll figure out some way to avoid this by the time it actually becomes a problem. So he did that. He went to all the trainings. He went to all the meetings. And it's a long process. So about a year later, they're moving along in the process, getting closer. Well, lo and behold, the Virginia General Assembly appointed me to be a general district court judge. So I left the office, and my chief deputy becomes the Commonwealth's attorney. Ends up getting elected a couple more times after that. But something funny had happened. He'd been to all these trainings. He'd seen the power of what can happen when you give someone a second chance. And so he's enthusiastic about it. Not only does he start the drug court, but he also assigns 2 of his prosecutors to essentially run it because it was unfunded at the time. And I was a general district court judge. I shrugged my shoulders, whatever. That's his deal. He's the Commonwealth's attorney now. I'm going to go back to my job of, speeding tickets and inspection stickers and misdemeanors. Well, 4 years after that, I get elevated to the circuit court in the 30th Judicial Circuit. And not long after that process played out, that it occurred to me that, oh my, now I'm going to have to preside over this drug court that I was fighting. And so I decided I need a crash course. I need an education here. And so I went to talk to other judges, pick their brains about how they did their recovery courts. I went to watch actual sessions drug court, went to conferences, went to a conference where the lead singer of one of my favorite bands was a graduate of a drug court, and just waxing poetic about the drug court model. But I was still nervous about it. I'll never forget the first 2. We did it Tuesday afternoons. I remember walking into the courtroom that first Tuesday afternoon. They hadn't yet had a graduation. They'd just gotten started right before I got there. And one of the participants in that courtroom, one of the drug court participants, in a room full, frankly, of people who would not have been in the courtroom if it weren't for other factors, was she was a woman then, but she'd been a girl a little bit ahead of me in high school. She was the drum major at our school. That was a big deal at that time. And I know all the freshman boys just thought she was the greatest thing. And there she was. And she'd had some things happen in her life. She ended up being our first graduate of the drug court. But I remember sitting in that court week after week, getting to know these participants, seeing what can happen when you give somebody a chance, when you give them some help, that lives can be transformed. I saw people who came into we called it a recovery court by the end, but I saw people come in to that recovery court with no other interest other than I can get my charges dropped. And by the time they finish, it's an afterthought because they've gotten so many other things back. Just because we gave them a hand. I saw individuals look me in the eye who I'm talking about second chances never had a first chance. The first week that you do everything right, we called it having a 100% week. All the drug screens were good. You went to all the meetings you had to go to. You met with your counselor. At some point, you have to have a job and work, and you do everything right. We call that 100% week, and in the courtroom, we'd clap for you. And I'd look at you wearing the robe, had a lot more hair then. And I'd say, great job, I'm proud of you. And the number of times I saw somebody just with tears welling up because nobody ever told them, good job. I was fortunate that we didn't have a lot growing up, but I did have parents telling me, good job. So, I also saw not just those lives transformed, I saw the lives of entire families transformed. You've never seen anything until you've been in a courtroom for a drug court graduation and see mamas crying because their child, their son, their daughter, who they thought they'd lost them, is back to them. So over the 10 plus years that I presided over that recovery court, changed a lot of the way I thought about what we're doing in the criminal justice system. So I somehow find myself, I retired from the bench a couple years ago, found myself as the chair of the Virginia Parole Board, another opportunity to dive into what second chances mean. Tried to start a lot of things. I'm still hopeful we're going to get a lot of them done, even though I'm not there anymore, to make it more transparent, to open it up. But also part of my job, I felt like, was to help convince everyone else on the board you can take second chances on people when they've earned it. So now I'm at the Virginia Department of Corrections. Again, I'm still not quite sure how I ended up here, but I'm proud to be here. And it's an opportunity for me to dive into this space even further. You know, in Virginia, somewhere upwards of 12,000 people are going to be released from incarceration every year. More than 90% of incarcerated individuals in Virginia are going to go home someday. We have to be about second chances because there are going to be a lot of people that need those second chances. It has to be our mission to make sure people are prepared. We're going to be doing some things in the coming weeks and months. Some of you have heard some of the things we're talking about. Lawrenceville, we've got some plans. It's all designed on when someone earns a second chance, how do we put them in the best position going forward? And here's why that's important to me. I want to tell you a little bit about my guiding philosophy as I wrap up here. So there's a guy named Napoleon Hill. I don't know if any of you ever heard of him. He was born in 1883. He was born in a log cabin on the Pound River in Wise County, Virginia, where I'm from. Not far from where Red Onion State Prison sits today. And Napoleon Hill has this quote. He started writing at the age of 13. He was a mountain reporter for small town newspapers all across America. Went on to become the most popular motivational author and speaker in America just after the turn of the last century. And he has this quote that I'll never forget. I love it. It is literally true that you will succeed best and quickest if you help others to succeed. And this is the way I try to guide myself professionally. You've heard the term live and let live. My phrase that they're sick of hearing at headquarters is win and help win. Right? For me to win, the people around me have to win. For me to succeed, the people that I work with in my office have to succeed. Right? If they're succeeding, then I'm succeeding. It's the same with those that are under supervision, on probation and parole, that we supervise out in the community. It's true of those that are in our care here in one of our facilities, right? I cannot succeed as the director of the Virginia Department of Corrections if you all don't succeed. Win and help win. So, frankly, I'm going to tell you, I'm still a little law and order. I think there need to be consequences for lawless behavior. I think that we need to, in a lot of the criminal justice reform that we've talked about in recent years, sometimes I feel like victims get left out too much. But I also believe this very deeply, that being open to second chances and giving hope to individuals is not a soft on crime policy. It's just the opposite. Frankly, it's a tough on crime policy. To give someone assistance when they need it. That's what helps guarantee long-term public safety. To give not just the tools to succeed, but the opportunity to use those tools. That's how we get long-term public safety for all the people that are coming out of Virginia Department of Corrections and going into our communities. Now, there's a 29-year-old prosecutor that would never have believed he'd be up here saying something like that. But you know what? I think a lot of people in this room can agree. We can change. Okay? Thank you all for letting me talk to you today. Really appreciate the fact we've been able to have this event here. I'm terribly excited about it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Dotson, and those also in this room for hopefully implementing some changes that will help us succeed in society. Thank you. Following his incarceration in the Virginia prison system at the age of 17, our next presenter not only graduated from college and earned his master's degree, but went on to graduate from Yale Law School and write poetry dazzling enough to earn him the Covenant MacArthur Fellowship. Attorney, poet, founder, and chief executive officer of Freedom Reads, a first-of-its-kind nonprofit bringing libraries to prisoners. We present a man definitely worth listening to. Please put your hands together for Reginald Dwayne Betts.
My name is Reginald Dwayne Betts. I am a poet, a lawyer, the founder and CEO of Freedom Reads. I'm also a job creator. When Freedom Reads started, it was really just a question that I answered. Somebody said to me, what would you do if money wasn't an issue and you wanted to do something for people who are in prison? I said, we put millions of people in prison. I would put millions of books into prison. I explained that I imagined that prison was a kind of glass, and that the people were water, and that we could think about books as ice cubes, and if you put enough books into that glass, the water would spill over. And when the water spills over, we will begin to notice the lives that we have ignored. They said to me, how would you do this? I said I would do it one library at a time. I ended up raising $5 million to do this project. I thought it would be a 3-year project. And so initially we had a team of 3 people. And soon I realized that this project was much, much larger than that. And the only way to explain the project is to tell you the names of the people who do this work with me. Stephen Parkhurst, if you write us and you get a response back, it is because he is organizing a system to ensure that we communicate with everybody on the inside. Michael Bird, he's putting his hands on nearly every freedom library that is built. Kevin Baker helps manage our shop, ensuring that we are thinking about what a production timeline is. Jimmy Flynn, he also is putting his hands on every library that is created. I walked into my job one day, and that's how I characterized it. I said I walked into my job one day. I said, Jimmy, how do you like this job? He said to me, I don't have a job. He said, I have a career. David Perez. When we work with the Department of Corrections, it is David that is helping do all of the logistics to make sure that the books arrive on time, to make sure that we know when we need to show up. James Washington is a part of one of our satellite shops in Louisiana, which means that when we build our libraries there and we go into Angola, there is somebody who is close to there that returns. Javon Butler, does the same thing. Sherry Crowder and her team of women in New Mexico, they are building libraries with their hands. And when I say they are building libraries, I mean literally that they are taking wood, often wood that would have been discarded, and transforming it into something beautiful. Somebody said to me, why should you put something beautiful in prison? They said, isn't the job to get people out of prison, not to make the conditions of confinement more beautiful? And I thought of everybody that I know who is serving life in prison. This is the thing. Everybody has a story. They have a name that they can name. In prison, they called me Shaheed, number 251534. I was guilty. Tupac has a line. They tell me it's the white man I should fear, but it's my own kind doing all the killing here. I was terrified in prison, and I was terrified of black men in prison. I was terrified of my peers in prison. If it was a knife within arm's reach, it was because somebody was a threat. It is so interesting to stand on this stage today knowing that I was released on March 4th, 2005. And my only ambition was never to return to a prison. I came home, and the day of my release, the first story my mother told me was that she had been raped 3 weeks after my arrest by a black man. Do not tell me that it is poverty that led me into this prison. Do not tell me that it is racism that led me into this prison. Ask me to believe in the same thing that I believed when I was inside, which is no matter how afraid I was, I had to have faith that the men around me will make sure that my 16 years and 125 pounds will make it out of prison. When I launched Freedom Reads, the first thing somebody said to me was, I thought we were supposed to get people out of prison, not make it better. And I said, I've gotten 3 people out of prison. Who have you gotten out of prison? I once had men and women in prison all over this country send me the clothes that they wore over decades, clothes that have become tattered and ripped and torn. And I turned it into handmade paper. I had a friend named Christopher Tunstall. Now, I went to Yale Law School. Yale Law School is the best law school in the country. And I imagined that I went to law school to become a public defender. And I realized I could not stomach the ways in which people wanted to evade responsibility for the crimes that they had committed. And I realized that I wanted to get my friends out of prison. I remember when I got juvie out. Nope. I remember when we were in a cell in Sussex One State Prison, and it was a window that was no thicker than my arm and no longer than my outstretched arm, and we were looking out onto the yard at night. And he said to me, do you think I will ever get out of this? He called it a desperation. Will I ever get out of this desperation? I told him if he gets a GED. And he looked at me like I was all of a fool. But see, I might have been 21 years old. And he reminded me that it was in prison when somebody first called me poet. That it was in prison when somebody first called me an educator. And years later, when he asked me to help him get out to write a letter, I said I would do you one better. I will represent you. I remember walking the 6900 Atmore Drive with his family on my arms. And I remember losing. Again and again and again. And when I finally got him out of prison, and that is a lie, when the parole board finally said yes, I remember how he died 6 months later. I gave a lot of the letters that he had written me to a friend of mine, and she had turned the pieces of handmade paper into art. And she floated pieces of his letters onto his paper. Paper made out of his clothes, out of the blood, the grit, the desperation that soaks into your skin when you think you will die here. And wildly, the first one of these I picked up. I don't know why he highlighted the last sentence. It said, "Take care of yourself, homie." But how do you take care of yourself when you cannot let prison go? I named names at the start of this. I said Stephen Parkhurst. He did 7 days shy of 30 years in prison. I said Michael Bird, he did 17 years. I said Kevin Baker, he did 7. I said James Washington, he did 25 years in Angola. I said Javon Butler, he did 25 years in Angola. Juvenile offenders. On James' birthday, a year after being released, Freedom Reads was his first job. Living wage, 401k plan, health insurance. He said, on my birthday, I want to return to Angola to take libraries to the men that don't have it. This is the thing. We talk about what freedom means. And we imagine that it means liberty, but I realize it does not mean liberty. Freedom means something that's more akin to faith. Freedom means whatever it was that made me. The first decision I made after being sentenced to 9 years in prison was to be a writer. I do not know any writers. What does it mean to hope that you could be somebody in a place where you don't even know if you can be safe? I have so many regrets. I thought my regrets would bury me. And then I realized that I made of my regrets feathers. I carry on the regrets of everybody I know. We do not deserve our liberty. What does it mean to deserve your liberty when you have murdered somebody? What does it mean? What does it mean to deserve your liberty when you have pulled out a pistol and put it in somebody's face and demanded everything they own? I don't ever walk into a room and talk about what I deserve. This is not about what I deserve. Because frankly, name somebody who does not deserve the sword for something that they have done in this world, whether they have landed in prison or not. No. What I talk about is mercy. What I talk about is dignity. What I talk about is what do we as a community of people deserve to give each other, even when the people we are talking about do not deserve the grace and the mercy that we bestow upon them. As of late, it has become so hard for me to believe in what allowed me to survive prison. Somebody said to me, "Who are you?" And I'm like, I'm nobody. Because I did not come anywhere for the kind of applause that I am showered with all of the time. No. I came here to remember one thing. One time I was at Sussex One State Prison. I crossed the yellow line to look at a book. And the sergeant said, I told you, Betts, about crossing lines. And they put handcuffs on me. And when they opened the cells of the top tier, a man named Kevin Williams pushed his locker out onto the tier and said, if Shaheed goes to the hole, I go to the hole. And I did not know this man. And then several others said, if Shaheed goes to the hole, we go to the hole too. And I did not know those men. And the sergeant said, one time, Betts, go back to your cell. Years later, Kevin Williams found out that I was a law school graduate. He said, will you represent me on parole? I remember going to the parole board to talk about this man. His mother was on my arm, and his mother is blind. He made parole too. And I remember just a couple of months ago when we walked back in the Dillon Correctional Center and Buckingham Correctional Center, and Luke walked in with us, having served 26 years in prisons all over this state. And I watched him be greeted by the staff who welcomed him back, proud that he had made it out and was making something of his life. And I remember every cell block that we walked on, the story that he told. I believe that somehow I have fashioned wings out of all my regrets. And I gotta hope that this room is filled with people who hold on to their regrets, not because their regrets lead to sorrow, but because their regrets lead to an expectation that we are more than whatever landed us in these prison cells. I hope that we all learn how to forgive ourselves. My son said to me when he learned that I went to prison at 5 years old, he said to me, but Dad, don't bad people go to prison? And I had no answer for this boy, because bad people do go to prison. You do not end up here because you're black. You do not end up here because somehow, as horrible as the world was, you lost agency. Oh, some of us do. I have wept in my chair for hours listening to the stories that we carry. I have wept in my home for hours listening to the stories that my mother has been afraid to tell me. And yet, sometimes tears grow something like a tree, grow hope, grow possibility, grow a 5-year-old into a child that writes this for his father on a Father's Day when his son needed nothing more than to hear this message. What my father's made of. He is the calming law of the ocean, the serene whistle of wind rattling pines, the confident gaze of the moon on a midnight stroll. There are no dry bones here. The strength of Atlas tempered with the wisdom of Odysseus. A thirst for knowledge befitting Odin. There are no dry bones here. The genius of Isaac Newton paired with a child's curiosity for life. With a heart of gold. There are no dry bones here. My father is my rock, the guidelight that steers me, kind and caring with empathy for others undeserved. The one who showed me my love of words. There are no dry bones here. My father is made of stories. One half of the whole, the most important story he's yet to finish. There are no dry bones here. No, my father's bones, they are made of stories fortified with love, convincing me someday he will soar. Thank you.
When the announcement was made that TEDx would be coming to Green Rock Correctional Center, resident Ramont Javon Barrett, known to most of us as Dr. Rock, entered into deep spiritual meditation in the quiet hours after midnight to determine if he should participate or not. The outcomes were yes, and the creation of the Green Machine Band. Please welcome Ramont Barrett on vocals, Tim Carr on keyboard, Gabrielle Crittenden on bass, Tim Carrs on electric guitar, and Eric McCutcheon on drums as they present the Green Rock Anthem song.
Y'all can clap, it's all right. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. We got our GEDs, our certificates, college degrees, we're coming home. For society, we for our dignity, we need a JOB, we're coming home. To one community, one Virginia, one nation, under God. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. Thinking for a change, victim impact, we kick that habit, we're coming home. For our stability, continued liberty, we need a JOB, we're coming home. To one community, one Virginia, one nation, under God. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. Come on everybody, come on, clap your hands. Here we go. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. Everybody come on, let's go this with me. Green Rock, come on. Green Rock, yeah. Green Rock. Green Rock, yeah, we are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. We are ready, we are ready, we are ready, we're coming home. Yeah, yeah.
I would like to thank all our ambassadors, participants, and guests who bridged the gap to enjoy the art, music, and talks shared here today.
It is our hope that this event has moved your hearts and minds, especially those of you who hold positions of influence, to invest in creative strategies to help the people who call prison home and those of us who work here. To support more events like this, please consider donating to Proximity for Justice at proximityforjustice.org. Again, proximityforjustice.org.
As residents, we will continue to work towards a goal of returning to society as respectable, stable human beings rejuvenated by hope and inspired by belief systems that will empower us in today's world.
Dostoevsky wrote that the degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. We hope that this will be but the first of many such events held in the Commonwealth, so that the world may see that Virginia not only leads the way in the fight against recidivism, but also in the rehabilitation of its incarcerated citizens. Thank you.
Again, proximityforjustice.org. Please donate to proximityforjustice.org. Before we end, if I'm not mistaken, we, the ambassadors, would like to present something to two women who has truly blessed us with their presence.
Y'all so cute.
So we would like to ask if Dr. Ann Rice and Ms. Delia Cohen would please come to the stage.
Woo-wee. Oh, you came this way.
It is with pleasure that we thank you so very kindly for all that you have done in blessing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Get the mic. Let me get the mic.
Oh my God, still you always.
Let me get the Test.
Testing, testing.
These two, I must say, one thing I can say is I just like the human side. The human, they just allow me to feel like a human being. Their humanity, they didn't allow prison to rob them of their humanity. And by bringing their humanity in this prison, it allowed me to feel that human. You know what I mean? To feel like a human being, like a person. And it's like they gave me my freedom in the moments that they was here. And man, it's an emotional thing to see them leave, because y'all just don't know, man, how they actually affected my life personally, just all around. And I thank y'all so much for y'all being y'all. Yeah, and I never met two people as y'all in my life, but I thank y'all. Anybody else want to say anything?
I just want to say to Ann and Delia how much I know that we all appreciate them a great deal. But as Steele was just saying, being in this environment, to have women come in here and don't see you for your mistakes, but see you as a human being, see you as a person, and their humor, their love, their compassion just to help others. I never really thought or even could imagine the work that go into putting all this together. You have no idea how hard it is to keep me from hugging this woman every single day that we're together. I mean, I have to catch myself. But I told myself, God willing, I'm on the outside. Can't nobody stop me from hugging her in, you know. But I also want to say that I thank you all you guests, for coming in here, because y'all don't realize that y'all have given a sense of humanity to every man in here. And I just want to say thank you all.
Wow.
These are two amazing women. I'm so grateful for them to be a part of my journey. For about 6 months, I stuck here, past my release date. I finally got another one. I'll be going home, inshallah, on the 28th of this month. After serving 13 years, these women have guided me for about 10 months. I didn't have a mother, but seeing their faces, picture me of me having my mother, for them being like a mother to me, guided me at times as the rest of these men up here when we felt down, helpless, hopeless, and didn't even have the energy at times to move forward through our daily basis. But I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I was talking with Sergeant Archer in the back, and I said to him, the only thing worse than being locked up is being locked away. For the time that they've been here, these two women have helped me not to feel locked away, and every man here not to feel locked away. We felt human. It's with incredible grace and mercy and largeness of heart that they received us and we received them. And I just want to thank them for the opportunity they've given myself and every man standing here, and all of you, because this is an opportunity for all of us to build and be better. And that's what I want to try to do going forward, and I'm sure every man standing here with me shares that sentiment. So I'm just going to leave it with that. Thank you. Thank you.